it's changed my life. We try to spend time together. We actually enjoy our company. That's a big thing. So we do things we enjoy, like hockey games, Raptor games, those kinds of things we do, right? And anytime, so we try to use my mother-in-law and my mom as much as we can to babysit, because generally, like, we get so caught up in our business, you have to have some downtime. And the other thing I would say, the reason I liked my coach, and also it helped my marriage, is
welcome back, everybody. We are back here in the lab for the DC Talks podcast. I'm with my main man, David Chanelli. This is episode 5. You know, last time we saw each other was in December, so we're back in the building to record another episode. Have you been? You know, how's your family? We're going to get into all of that. But, first and foremost, man, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right.
Yeah.
It's a good start of the year. You know, it's been, wow, I think this year, we'll talk a little bit later, but it's like, it's a good fresh start.
It's a good fresh start.
Last year was a little bit challenging in many different ways, but it was good to have a good Christmas, just chill, see the whole family. Saw actually my whole family, which was rare, even on the extended family. So yeah, I had a good time.
How big is your family, by the way?
So on my dad's side, he's got 3 brothers, so there was 4 of them. So and they all have my grandmother, before she passed away, had 13 grandchildren on that side.
Jeez.
And on the other side, my mom's side, she only has 1 brother, but we got to see each other all his extended family too. So I have 2 cousins on that side. Anyway, there's a lot of family, a lot of family.
Absolutely, man. Since we dropped the first 4 episodes and we're back here recording again, I wanted to recap 2022. Now it's back to 2023. You have a lot of things on your plate on the go at all the times. So I want to first ask you, was 2022 everything you expected it to be?
2022 was an odd year. I don't know if you've seen, for work-wise and personal-wise, it was a kind of a little bit of a whirlwind. We, first off, our family had moved, and we moved in February, which was kind of a little bit of a transition. I had a little bit of a health scare. We talked about that before. I had a blockage in my brain, which was, found out, and I had to have surgery, and happened like a whirlwind. It was pretty quickly that way. And I knew that the market was going to change. So I kind of changed my goal setting from the year before, because the year before, 2021, was unreal. I blew through my goals in the first 4 or 5 months, which was holy crap. But me and my broker record, we were talking, and we were the beginning of 2022, and we're how do we, what numbers am I going to put in here, right? Do we go back? Do we scale back? And we didn't know what was going to affect. So the beginning of the market was gangbusters, and it was kind of a shitty market. I hated that market. There's bidding wars left and right. 20 people line up for a house. One person gets the house, and 19 people go home without feeding their families. It was just a terrible market. And then it crashed, and not crashed, but it really hit like a wall, and it changed, right? So, but yeah, I think I adjusted my numbers, and I fell just a little shorter than I wanted to get, but all things considering with the, the surgery that I had to do, and all of the MRIs and all that kind of crap too. So with the brain surgery stuff, it actually turned out to be a pretty good year. I still got in the top 2% nationally, which was crazy. They had a new award, in which I got. So I didn't get to the 1%, which has always been my goal, but this year was very, very difficult to get in that level. And it was, and I was very thankful for, even getting the level that I got to. And I got to help a lot of families. It was good.
Amazing, man. So you brought something interesting there. You're talking about setting your goals and establishing where you want to go for the year. How do you go about your goal setting process?
It's pretty actually simple, right? What I do is, we break it down into, I want to see where I want to be at the end of the year. So for example, I try to break it into quarters. So I try to do multiples of 4. And so I kind of figure out how many deals do I want to do? Right. So I look at that. And so, for example, say I wanted to do 50 deals for the year, I break it down and say, well, the closest probably is 48. So I try to and I break that into quarters. And so I try to do 12 deals per quarter. That's my goal. And based on those deals, I kind of calculate what the money range, and I bump it up a little bit more, because sometimes that's what happens, right? So if the average sale price is saying $1 million, for example, and the average sale, say you get 2% or something like that, it's 20,000, and you multiply it, and that's the dollar value. The dollar value doesn't really matter as much to me. It's more of the deals I try to do. And because that's more quantitative, I can figure out how to do that. And then with my old coach, what we would do is we look and he would say, you have to find leads. Leads are somebody who's going to buy and sell, right? That's what you want. Like my job is to find leads. You're always looking for somebody to buy and sell. And that's my job. My job is to find those people. And his quota was like, well, 1 in every 4 leads you get works out. In reality, mine's more like 1 every 3. But so if I want to have 48 deals, that means every quarter I got to find 48 leads in order to make those deals work. And then I work on that. And basically when I find the leads, there's also a way to cultivate the leads, like how often you call them, right? So if somebody wants to buy in the next 10 to 12 days, I'm at least conversing with them at least Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. In reality, I talk to them almost every day, saying, hey, did you see this come out? Have you noticed this? We're talking back and forth. If you talk to a mortgage broker, we're always, I'm always in their head. They're always in their space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was orbiting around them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If somebody's in the next, like say, and the next, we consider a hot lead. And then if somebody's considered like, I consider like a warm lead, he's going to buy or she's going to buy in the next, 3 months. In the next quarter, we're going to buy something. You probably get at least a phone call or text message once a week from me saying, hey, have you seen anything else pop up? You might be interested. I know you're not ready yet. We just you give value add. It's not like, hey, how you doing? That doesn't do anything for them. So with the market update as well, you kind of say, hey, the market's changed. Here's what we're looking at. Have you seen anything up? So that's kind of what's happening. And then the other thing you do is like, if there's somebody's going to be 6 months out, well, then you put them in your database and you make sure you follow up with them at least, 3 to 4 times a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you've been talking a lot about professional goals, right? Because when I asked you about goal setting, the first thing you went into is like professional, I'm going to do these deals and everything. I didn't get deeper to that, talking about the personal side of things. When I think about goal setting, Dave, I'm thinking about, okay, what are my personal finance goals? Then what are like my fitness goals, spiritual, family? I kind of break it down into different parts. Do you do something similar like that?
Somewhat, yeah. Lately I have been, right? So, for me, I went to go see, one of the reasons why I found what I had in the brain issue was I went to a clinic. It was a private clinic I went to, which the problem we have in our healthcare, I think most people know this. And if you saw my post about it too, I was kind of aggravated. For the last 4 years, I've had doctors tell me that what I was hearing in my head was,
it's nothing.
It was nothing. Oh, yeah. I had 2 or 3 doctors say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It wasn't until I went to this private clinic, it is what it is. You pay for it. They go deeper and they found out this issue and stuff. So I had like a weight goal. Like I've dropped 30 pounds since I've started this process, which is good. I want to get it. But yeah, so I have a weight goal. I would like to get, I want to lose another 10 pounds. I'd like to do that. Again, percentage body fat, losing again. So I do have those things. Spiritual wise, yes. I found, last year was a trying year, and I'm like, I try to, read the Bible every day, Monday to Friday, before and right before my workouts.
Are you Catholic, Christian, or
Christian? Yeah, Christian. I used to be Catholic. That's a whole other situation. I was in a whirlwind when it came to spirituality, right?
Yeah.
Very hardcore Catholic growing up, Italian family.
All Italians are always Catholic, man.
Yeah, and it's funny. Then I was always asking questions, because you're learning about Jesus, you're learning about stuff, and you're like, and I'd ask questions. Like I'd be like, hey, why are we doing this? What is this ritual you're doing? Why are you doing the ritual? And a lot of the answers I get back is like, just shut up and do it. I was like, what do you mean, just shut up and do it? And I started but I would go. It was always, even though we were a family of 5, I have 2 brothers and obviously mother and father. Or maybe not, obviously, but yeah. So it was always my brother Mike, my middle brother, myself, and my dad. Every Sunday we go to church and stuff too. And I just ask questions and things like that. And you just kind of shut up and did what you're told. But I just started to fall away from the faith, the Catholic faith, a little bit, because things just weren't adding up. What
was it adding up to in specific?
Why do you, for example, why in the 10 Commandments it tells you not to have any statues or idolatry, and then you go into a Catholic church and it's full of that. Full of idolatry, people praying and kissing the feet of things. I'm like, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then you get into, I'm like, I thought and then the Bible talks about not calling anybody father, but priests are all called fathers and stuff too. So there's certain things and rituals, why is baptism done by babies? Why? When in the Bible, we learned about kids when Jesus was baptized, he was in his 30s, and he made a spiritual change and follow God and showing people what to do. I'm like, well, we're not doing any of that stuff. And I go out and they're like, things like, reconciliation. Why is a priest able to absolve me of my sins? I thought Jesus paid, like, I don't know, we're getting into deep and like, but Jesus had died for our sins. And then all of a sudden, like, but now this priest can all of a sudden do the same thing as like, it just, things were adding up. And long story short, long story long, maybe, we kind of like, this is going to be fucked up. Since I was a kid, I was visited by a lot of ghosts.
Really?
Yeah. Like a lot of paranormal shit.
Like during sleep or just during
no,
the day?
Awake. My parents would like, they would try not to give into it. And like say, my dad used to go through it too. Statues moving, things like when I'm sleeping. I used to see ghosts. We had an exorcism done in my house at 18, when I was 18, because I ran out of the house when I was 18. Lights were turning on, things were turning off. Feeling like snakes wrapping around my neck and choking me. One time, I know this is weird. I was dating this girl and I felt like, it was before Natalie and I. We actually got Natalie and I back together again, and it's a difference. She was kind of crazy and like certifiably crazy.
Like certified.
Like literally I had to, like we had cops and everything called, but I had to go to court as a character witness for her ex-husband to say how crazy she was and how much she lied. I only dated this girl for 3 months, and this she had me wrapped around her little finger. It was crazy. And I never met this man before. And I'm like, whatever you need for me to say as a character witness how crazy this woman is, I did it in court, and I showed emails and everything too. That's how certifiably crazy. But during that time, there was a lot of, she also told me she was, at one point, joking, she was a witch, but I think she was. She sent a lot of negative spiritual things on me, right? And like my family, everyone felt it, right? And that kind of sparked me into getting into New Age stuff, believe it or not, because I always had a problem with ghosts, and the Catholic faith wasn't doing anything for me. Learning into a little bit more, you realize it's a pagan religion. It's like, and nothing, no offense to my Catholic friends or followers. And listen, like whatever way you want to follow God, you follow God the way. I'm not going to judge you. And this is what happened. I just wasn't getting answers the Catholic way. And I had a friend. She worked at RBC, and like they did this kind of stuff, and it led into New Age, which I didn't realize was. Like, anyway, I don't want to talk about like, well, I can talk about it. I just don't know what the viewers going to, but anyway, long story longer again. It was one of those things that one time when I was in New Age, I woke up in the middle of the night and there was demons standing around me, and this hooded, and I was not sleeping. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I went and turned on the light. They were gone. One time, not too short after that, this is while we're in the New Age stuff, right? Doing this Reiki and all this kind of stuff, which is obviously, well, maybe not obvious. One time my wife was with me, and we weren't married at the time, but we're staying at my house. And before this happened, like I really experienced a lot of stuff on my own. My family would see stuff too, but like not at the same level. They wouldn't bother them as much as they were bothering me. And she was over the house, and we were just before we got married, and we were downstairs. And remember, we were at my parents' house, and they had this long table. And my mom brought in like this big glass tray. It's like crystals about this big. And she left it at the head of the table. Nobody else is talking, everything. Nobody else is around it for a couple minutes. And all of a sudden, this thing just shatters. And we're like,
no one touched it.
No one's even by the table.
And so you're the only person who's seen.
No, we all we were all in a different room. So this is leading up to what happened to me later on. I guess an entity was there, wasn't going to pay attention to Smash because nothing was around it, right? The reason why I say it was an entity that night, because when Natalie and I were in bed, all of a sudden she's talking to me, I'm like, shut up. She's like, what? She's all offended. Look at me like, I'm like, just be quiet for a second. I'm like, what? And she heard what I was hearing. It was this heavy, deep breathing, which I've heard in the past when I was younger. Probably this is when we had to do the exorcism when I was 18. I heard the same deep, heavy breathing, and then she just freaked the hell out. And I'm like, you're the first person that's ever experienced an entity with me besides myself, right? And Natalie and I were doing Reiki at the time, and we went in and we talked to our Reiki, and I told them about the crashing and this breathing, and they told me, and the demon with all the people beside my bed waking me up. And my master, Reiki master, the head of the teacher, she's like, they're just challenging you. I'm like, that's normal. I'm like, it's fucking normal to have demons come into your house and to attack you? Well, yeah. I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm done.
Out. Then I started getting into conspiracy theories and all this kind of stuff too. And then during the same time, and things were leading me back to the Bible. And which we never learn in Catholic Church. You don't learn about this stuff because, like, if you go back to a lot of the Protestant churches, the reason why this doesn't work its way into Catholicism is because it goes against what a lot of they teach, right? So this is where we're going back to just shut up and do what you're told.
Yeah, man. I also want to mention that to you because I was watching, because I love learning and researching different things. Like, there was like Mysteries Unsolved on Netflix. There's an episode about ghosts and people being visited and their houses being haunted. And I was doing I was looking at different videos that are not allowed on YouTube. And back during when you go to these different websites. So the army one time was looking at wearing these different glasses, which, if you have night vision, instead of seeing green, whenever you wear night glasses, it's always green, but this time they're red. So there's a chemical called dikinin, right? So this one scientist, he built this pair of goggles where, like, when you actually wear them, you can actually see the energy transfer of someone. So for example, like when you wear them, I can see the kind of energy you have, right? If it's like an evil spirit, a positive spirit, and the energy actually transforms that person into like the evil spirit that they could be. So it could be like their face is looking, if you think about like an evil creature that exists, that person carries that type of energy with them, and he was putting them up for sale. So the dikinin, when you put it within glass, it gives your vision to see that. So that's why when we say, I have a very negative vibe about this person, I have a very positive vibe, because your third eye feels it and can see it, but on like you're in this realm of existence, you can't see that, but your energy feels it. So this scientist was able to actually create this chemical, and it's banned. It exists, but like it's not for sale. Like,
it doesn't surprise me.
It really messed a lot of people up. So back to the story, these guys are in war, and they're flying like across, I think this is like in Asia. They're in war, and they're in the plane, and as they're flying, one of the soldiers starts shooting up in the sky, and it's like, soldier, why are you shooting? He's like, yo, don't you see that there's like an evil, like a spirit, like there's dragons and everything. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, they're like, what are you seeing over there? Same thing happened again, second time. A different soldier starts shooting randomly to planes. They're shooting at their own guys. They're like, why are you shooting our own? Did you see that? Whatever. So the sergeant wore the pair of goggles, and he saw, like what was described was the most evil, grotesque thing you could ever see. And this type of things, our mental beings can actually feel and see these type of things, but you just can't really visually see it. But you can see it. There's one quote by Nikola Tesla. He says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. Right? Vibration, energy, and frequency. So the vibration you get from someone, you can feel it. The frequency of that energy, you can definitely feel it. So everything is always tied to energy, frequency, and vibration. So the things that you're seeing, right, that ghosts and everything, it's actually true. They do exist. It's just in a different plane.
Yeah, it's of course, and then we've always been told about different dimensions and things like that too. And it's like, like certain beings could live in 10 different dimensions. It's just kind of out of our realm. We're probably going to move on from this stuff too. But anyway, I still remember one time my brother and I were fighting and talking about like things moving dimension. And my oldest brother, there's just one thing. And I remember ripping his chain. He had a gold chain.
Yeah.
And I remember ripping it and dropping it. And like as we're fighting, hit the carpet and disappeared. Right in front of our eyes, and we were like, for the longest time.
Was it a thin gold chain, like one of those thin ones?
Those thin gold chains, and it was like, I still stuck in my head. We ended up moving there like years later. Never found it. Never found the chain.
You took everything out.
It literally disappeared right in front of us. Weird.
Wow,
it's crazy.
It's messed up.
So I'm translating that into real estate.
Yeah.
So I do like I just to bring that back. So like people ask like, so like. Part of the reason why I do that is I am very conscious about that, with God, and I'm very in tune to what people feel in that too, and I think that the energies I feel from that too, you can definitely feel that. And I think like if you've met some of my clients when you came to the holiday party, they're all very full of high energy and they're good people, good spirits, and I think I attract that too, and I think that's part of the thing. Like I want to elevate, like the reason why I became a realtor was to elevate somebody's real estate experience, because I had so many shitty, experiences, like crazy shitty experiences. And it was like, that's just not the way it should be, right? Like, so you have to be the right match. And it would always, I think like attracts like. And I think that because I had the negative aspects about the spiritual things, and then also having the positive now, like realizing, like I can change my life around. Because believe it or not, I used to have like really low self-esteem growing up. I had 2 older brothers. My oldest brother, fortunately, was born with spina bifida, and his outlook on life has always been a little different than ours. I would say. So my middle brother and I were treated almost like twins, almost like we did everything together, and so it's a little bit different upbringing. We had those two, but in the beginning, when I was younger. My brother was just negative because he used to make himself feel better. And if you listen to this podcast, you'll realize who he is. But it's not a secret that he would put me down, and like he would boast me in front of other people, but never in front of me. So even though he was proud of me, he would never say that, right? Especially so up until I was about 12, 13, like he gave me a really bad complex. I thought he used to say like, as a kid, like, oh, you're just adopted, which is nothing wrong with adopted. Like mom and dad don't love you. And then they found you in a garbage can. They just don't. And those things like resonated. I thought they were real. Even though as a kid, words matter what you say to people in general. And I've talked to my kids about this too. And they'll say, what about my upbringing? You can't say negative things to yourself even negatively, because your brain doesn't know the difference between when you are joking or when you're being serious.
Yeah.
So I don't even say anything negative. And even songs, there's that one song that says, oh, I'm so stupid. I don't even sing that. I turn off the channel because your brain doesn't realize it's like, even if it's in a joking way, right? So because of those negative aspects I had growing up, it was like, at one point, I just said to my brother, in my head, it's like, go fuck yourself. And I said, first, I'm like, I am worthy of this. I'm going to maybe like, and then everything started to change as a little bit, right? Like I started playing a better hockey. Even though I played the highest level hockey as a kid, I was okay. I was good, but I wasn't like great. You know what I mean? Like, and I just hit a different level when I actually started to believe in myself. And things slowly started to change. So I realized turning those negatives into a positive is something you can do, right? And there were some dark times we had too. Like even in university, there were some times that just like you were low of low. But now being where I am too, I'm like I think positively. I try to think positive. Something negative happens to you, I think positive, and I think that attracts the right people in my life. And I try to show that to my kids as well. Like the other day, we had a conversation in the car, and I said, you should never say anything negative to yourself. I don't want to hear her say, like my little one says jokes and she'll say something negative about herself. I'd stop. I say, don't say that. I know you're joking, but your brain doesn't know you're joking. If you start joking it long enough, guess what? Your brain will start to believe it. Yeah. And then the negative things start to creep in.
Yeah. People don't know that words are everything. Like the word it's the impact it can have to your soul and everything is insane. It creates your reality, because when you speak things out and you actually say them out loud, you're actually reaffirming them to yourself without even you realizing, because as you said, your subconscious doesn't know to a positive thought or a negative thought. The only thing it associates itself with is the feeling you get when you say those words. So if the word is let's say, I am great, and you feel that and you believe it, you're only going to start seeing greatness around you. You're only going to start seeing things that attract greatness. And the same thing, if you say, I'm a loser, I'm not worthy, you're going to start attracting people who affirm that feeling and thought, and they're going to dish it back to you.
Your brain seeks it out.
It seeks it out.
So when I started real estate, I don't know if people realize this or not, but there's a ton of real estate coaches out there. Not all of them are good. Some of them haven't even sold anything in like 30, 40 years, and they're real estate coaches. But I had a really good coach. Like one thing I love about my brokerage is that they bring in tons of coaches, right? And there was a coach, and I can say his name. His name is Rob Vivian. He's no longer my coach now. Just like recently, it was just one of those things. It's like you kind of outgrow. Like you learn what the relationship was there for 7 years, and I was like, okay, I already know the system. I've tweaked it so much that it's no longer their system, so it just didn't make sense. But that doesn't mean he's not a good coach. I think he's a good enough coach that you outgrow him. That's a good thing, right? But one of the reasons that really attracted me to this particular coach, which again, if I'm going to say this as well, like when you're getting into real estate, I think you need one of two things. Either you need a really good coach to resonate with, or have like a mentor or a team lead. Those three things will help you with your business. Okay. Because if you don't have direction or what you should be thinking or doing too, like you're going to be lost. Like if you just try to do it, like this industry has been around for a very long time. You don't have to do everything they say, but learn from them at least and figure out what works for yourself. So that's kind of like what nobody also told me in the beginning. So one of the reasons why I chose the coach that I chose, he was very, very heavy on what you tell yourself, what you say to yourself. how you get into negotiation, the psychological aspect of it. And a lot of it comes back to what you believe in yourself. So we get a phone call, and I still, even though he's technically not my coach, I still get his phone calls every morning with inspirational quotes he gives us every day.
Sends you a little text.
No, it's a phone call.
It's a phone call.
I get a phone call at 8:30 every morning. Even though I'm like, I asked, I said, hey, Rob, I'm sorry, like, I've been here for 7 years, love the program stuff too. He goes, no, we understand. We get it. I'm like, it's okay if I still am on the coach's call. He said, absolutely. We don't just do it for our clients. We give it calls because it does attract other people too, right? And at the end of, so he'll give you a motivational quote. He'll also tell you what you should be doing. Like, for his system, the one I'm saying about the system is that's worked. It's worked for me, right? Like, break it into 4 quarters. 1 out of 4 leads works every deal. Sorry, every quarter. And that works when you're supposed to call your clients. So he reminds you those kinds of things, gives you a quote, how it pertains to him. And at the end of every conversation, he wants you to say out loud, something awesome is going to happen today. Something awesome is going to happen today. Something awesome is going to happen today. And he says it like that. And he says it every single way, exactly the same time. And he goes, do you know what we're doing? Those are affirmations. He goes, if you say that to yourself every single day, say something positive. You can say 5, 10, 15, whatever positive things. That's why mantras work for people. Your brain actively seeks for the things that you've said. So if I say every single day, something awesome is going to happen today, guess what your brain's looking for?
Awesome stuff.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And even something might be negative, like you also train your brain to say, like, what is the awesome thing that's happened out of this negative situation? It's changed my life. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, Rob has done a very good thing. Like, what he's doing is great. Like, it's for the mental aspect, I took a lot from him and I learned a lot.
Yeah. I also have a similar thing to what you're saying. Mine is, isn't it wonderful? Right? You say, isn't it wonderful? Right? When you suspend judgment to say what is wonderful, everything you think is like, wow, isn't it wonderful? Like, damn, look at that. We just grew our company to whatever. Hey, look at that. I just got a call. My mom told me she's doing this. All the wonderful things are going to happen. And I get to, you and Rob, right? Which brings me to the next thing is talking about your potential and growing your potential as a realtor, as a man, as a father and a husband. How do you see your potential moving forward to who you could become?
This year, the aspects. So my potential, it's funny because when I first started in real estate, I didn't know really. You just never know, right? But every year seeing it growing, it's like, yeah, I can see me being like top 1%, in the country, and very soon I can definitely see that. It's funny you're saying the next 5 years. I've never looked 5 years beyond. And I don't believe, like, it's not like I don't believe, because it's always something positive you're looking for. I think they're putting a time frame on too rigid things. I don't know. I kind of sometimes people can get frustrated with that too. But yeah, so I think for business wise, it's the easiest one for me to answer, I guess, because for potential wise, I think potential is unlimited, right? It depends on, like, I've been doing this for 7, almost 8 years now. And I'm, like, I've done fairly well for that, but I still think there's always room to grow. I think there's so many cool things I could bring into real estate that people haven't thought about. And I think potential for me is always grand. Because I'm open to suggestions and like, hey, listen, we're sitting at this table because you gave me a cold call one day and we talked, and I was open to your suggestion. I also brought things to the plate in which I wanted to see. And it's an ever evolving thing, which I think I'm open to that. So I think my potential is huge as a realtor. As a husband, potential is like always better. There's always potential to be a better husband.
Yeah. Being a husband, it seems like it's an everyday job.
Oh yeah, like a dad. I have 2 amazing daughters, they're 10 and 12, Matea and Mila. I was always ready to be a dad. I had to convince Natalie, my wife. She was a little scared of childbirth, in the beginning. But it was the thing for me is it's understanding that my kids aren't me and my kids aren't my wife. Like, our personalities, if you look at all of our personalities, very different. I had a conversation yesterday with my cousin who came, we had lunch, and he was talking with his daughter, Stephanie, and he's like, it's funny, when I go to an outing, I'm talking to everybody, I'm kissing everybody, hands, hey, how you doing? All this kind of stuff too. And then my kids, them together, they're in their corner on their phones or like in their sketchbooks. And they're like, that's the other thing. They're very artistic and amazing sketchers, both of them, like really good. The little ones, likes sports a little bit more than them, but is not an athlete in that sense, that doesn't crave it. Where my wife and I are both huge sport freaks. Like, Natalie played volleyball in Australia, and for the university when she's in Australia, like that's her level. I played, obviously, I played university hockey and didn't really make it pro, kind of bounced around a little bit there too, but we played high level sports. And it's funny that our kids aren't.
They don't want that. Yeah.
So the potential of being a dad, it's like a good dad is like, I don't know that, because it's like you learn from what didn't work from your dads and maybe work from your in-laws, all that stuff too. And I don't know. There's always room to grow. And the funny thing is like, you're going to fuck up. Like it's just making sure that your kids are okay with that too. Like with you screwing up things, I'm saying being open to that and saying, hey, listen, I made a mistake here, and like, that's like, obviously not a mistake to messes up your family in that sense. But like, like there's some parenting decisions. Maybe we shouldn't have done, maybe we should have talked about this, or maybe you shouldn't have done that. But I think potential for both, any relationship you have with your family, a lot of it is communication. So what was instilled with me to be a better husband and a better father is to make sure we try to have at least one meal a day together. We try to that, like there's certain times when my wife is working or I'm working where I, maybe just the three of us, or maybe just the three of them. But I'd like to sit back and we pray, we say thanks to God. We go around the table after we say our grace, and I say, what are you thankful for today? And hopefully that a lot of times opens up communication just by sitting there today. And the family that eats together stays together. Yeah. And that's how I was brought up. And I think that's so. I don't know. You have to ask my wife how I'm doing as a husband, and I'd ask my kids how I'm doing as a father. Yeah. But I try.
Yeah, it sounds like you've instilled like good family values and a routine just to keep everything together between you, the kids, you and Nat. And did Nat play a factor into this? Like you both sat together and like, hey, Dave, I think we should start implementing this as a family.
No, like a lot of times when it comes to the religious aspect, she's kind of like followed along with me. Like again, with her upbringing with, even the Catholic Church stuff too, like they were kind of more of a loose scene. Like, so I'm saying, well, so that is basically a onus on us. Eating together as a family, made sure that's like together, and she agrees with it. Some things are like, I would try, like, I tried to get Natalie to read the Bible on Saturdays with me because, that's a Sabbath day. We're trying to, and she's like, I'm not getting anything of this. So I stopped forcing her. And in the beginning, some things are like, and again, we grew up with boys. So I have three boys. I grew up with two brothers. She grew up with three sisters, and learning through her how to treat girls or daughters is much different than we learned of as growing up as sons. Like it's like night and day. So she takes a lot of the reins when it comes to disciplining. I think like I do, like I'm the hard hand when it comes to that kind of stuff, but she kind of gives me guidance. Okay, you can't do this, and like after I'll do something, she'll, we'll talk about how things go. It's a relationship. Like we're learning, right? Again, every parent is going to parent different than their parents parent them or what they're used to. Some people fall into the same categories that we do this because this is what you do, but I think most people don't. I think they have their own parenting style, and it's just figure out what works.
Yeah. I'm going to get deeper with the relationship between you and Nat. Not only are you two married, but you also work together. And I want to understand, how do you balance the romantic side of your relationship and then also the business side of it?
Yeah, so my wife, we said before, has her own business and stuff too. And the thing is she started the business, with a lot of my help because she was staging my properties. And now her and her partner, Julia, have this amazing business at Spaces Collective. And a lot of aspects, it'll be like, all of my listings, they do my listings. And so in the beginning it was a springboard. Now they've done very well. The thing is, like, her business has grown so exponentially well, right? It's like, it's great. So when we weren't doing this, I would, we'd go to property. I'd have her come through. I didn't tell people she was my wife. And I think we talked about in the last podcast, when saying will come through. And then sometimes we'd bring furniture together. We'd fight all the time. Like, you try to get romance after fighting all day. It's it doesn't work. So one thing we realized is like, okay, you do the walkthrough. Then we would bring somebody else to do like the actual moving the furniture. So she's became more of the boss. Now when it comes to my listings and stuff, we've dedicated who does what. And a lot of times I'm not even on site. Like, you just do it. You tell me what looks good. Like, this is your aspect. You're the boss of this. I'm not going to tell you the boss of this. And you're not going to tell me how the boss was when it comes to real estate side. So there's a separation a lot of their time there too. If I want to see, like, and I'm probably the easiest one because it's like, I trust my wife. And if then there's no like, honey, you should have put this. No, that doesn't happen. Like, she'll tell me I like this, I don't like that. Right. So that's good aspiration. When it comes to the romance and stuff too, it's like, listen, sometimes we get crazy busy. Like, there was times, especially during COVID and stuff too, like, where we're working our asses off, and COVID wasn't a good time for most relationships. How many people we've seen divorced and stuff. They just didn't
People
make it
moved
through.
out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy for us too. Like, you know, and don't believe those things you see on Instagram, those couples like that are all, you know, smiling and lovey-dovey all the time. Fuck. If you watch any of our stagers quarters, you know that doesn't happen in our lives. You know, it's like there's a lot of like, you know, angst and stuff, like anger between us. And not anger, creative, like it just, we bounce each other out. And because I fuck around a lot, like in joking wise, you know, we'll see in front of the camera, I'll say something and she'll be looking like, you can't fucking say that. That's why I have to stop and record it and stuff too. Because I just like to keep things light and try to push her buttons. Sometimes I push them a little too far and doesn't like that, but on camera. But anyway, but what we realize is stuff, you do need to have date nights, you know, like, and so for example, like this week, we're going to get into the Raptor game together. Like we do that.
Against the Celtics.
Yeah, against the Celtics. And we're doing that. And we do that. We try to, any aspect we get, like, we try to spend time together. We actually enjoy our company. That's a big thing. So we do things we enjoy, like hockey games, Raptor games, those kinds of things we do, right? And anytime, so we try to use my mother-in-law and my mom as much as we can to babysit, because generally, like, we get so caught up in our business, you have to have some downtime. And the other thing I would say, the reason I liked my coach, and also it helped my marriage, is you should be taking vacation 4 times a year.
Every quarter.
Now, doesn't mean you have to go away every quarter, but you take a couple of weeks off, like, you know, from prospecting, relax, you know, sure. But you should be at least once a year on vacation away without your phone. Never happens. But anyway, but I find that so now without the, you know, thing on the last 3 years, we're going on vacation this year coming up. So it's gonna be a first time in 3 years, but that also because you get to leave everything away. Like you don't have the distractions every day.
Take that pause for the cause.
Yeah.
You know?
So, you know, I'm you know, ask Natalie, hopefully it's all working. Like we're still married. So And again, and the one thing I would say for most relationships is like, nobody's perfect, like ever. Like there's always going to be arguments. That's part of marriage. That's part of living with anybody. I don't care what relationship you have. Any relationship you have, you don't have some sort of like argument or some sort of disagreement, or you don't see eye to eye. If you don't have that, that means it's like a superficial, not deep relationship. It's a fake relationship.
It's a fake relationship.
It's fake.
So for those like young guys and girls who are looking at getting married, what are like 3 things you can say that you've learned? You've been married for how long, you said?
14 years.
14 years.
It'll be 15 in September. So yeah, 14 and a half years.
14 years. So 3 things that would make a successful marriage to you.
I always say this with any relationship, and very, very number one, I would say, was communication is number one. And I think that communicate like what's happening, like how you communicate matters. So even if you're communicating differently from your wife, at least know that going in, right? And knowing what those expectations are. So we were talking the other day about how people express love, right? Some people like to be touched more, like, you know, more of a hug and kissed more, or some people don't like that at all. Like my little daughter doesn't want to be touched at all. Like I try to hug her, it's like, oh,
she doesn't like affection.
Oh my God, no. But I'm like, so we're trying to figure out what, like, so the other ones are like, you know, affirmations, gifts, those kinds of things. Like, so what do you like? So knowing how your partner is and trying to stay within that, but know sometimes they might need that. The communication of that is huge, right? So that would be that. The second thing I would say is like, do what you say you're going to fucking do. Holy shit. Like, don't promise something. And that comes with business. This is also business. Don't overpromise something you know you can't cash on. Now, if you tell her, for example, it's like, I want to eventually buy you the $2 million home, and you're sitting there too, but it's going to take me some time. This is my goal. That's different than saying, hey, baby, next year I'm going to buy you $2 million. You know what I mean? It's just like, so I would say fulfill on those things. And that is a matter of fact. So say what you're going to do and communicate. You know, the third thing I would say is know what you expect out of every relationship before you get in married. I think like, and that would be a successful long-term relationship. Like you have to know what your financial goals are. You have to know what your physical goals are. You have to know what do you expect out of the marriage? Do you want kids? If you're not having this conversation before you get married, it's like any other business. If you're in a business relationship, you don't set out those parameters. If somebody doesn't know how you're going to market a house, for example, they don't know what to expect. And now, so everything's going to fall short. Yeah. Because those lines are not communicated. It goes back to communication. But having that whole setup is like knowing what the expectations are of each other, what to expect. Then you would know if it's going to work or not. Those are 3 big things. I think.
3 big things, man. Those are gems. As we work towards wrapping up, you know, what are some interests you got like that you're looking at exploring, that you're challenging yourself to do apart from real estate and the regular and hockey, let's say?
Yeah.
What are some other things?
It's funny. I actually don't play that much hockey anymore. I only play
But
maybe
you're
once a week. I
obsessed.
still play once a week,
Yeah.
but it's not like, so much. Like, so okay. So some of the goals I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
My daughter and I had picked up the guitar, and we were kind of learning. We've actually taken a little bit of a break now, but I would still want to get back into learning guitar because growing up, I I've learned 3 instruments. Like when I started off with the trombone in grade 6, and then my buddies weren't showing up, and I saw the baritone. So I picked up the baritone and learned the baritone myself, and I'm getting the music award back in elementary school just because I just liked it that much.
Yeah.
And then I went to high school. They made me play the tuba, which sucks balls. I'm sorry if you're a tuba player; it's so boring. Anyway, but I always wanted something to boom, 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 boom.
So to be a rock star.
Yeah, I'd like to. So that's kind of cool. I think that would be aspiration. If I can get back into jiu-jitsu again, I was so close to a purple belt, and that's been a while. But now if things settle down, I always wanted to go back and fight. I like fighting. Like
they always say every man should learn a combat.
Yeah.
Like, boxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA, or whatever it is that you want to do. Boxing would be for me. It's not like I want to get in the ring and fight. I've always wanted to. To try it, but just the physical aspect of it, the discipline, the dedication, the mentality you get from like protecting yourself and actually fighting is something that I think every guy should at least try as a man. And I don't want to be like that toxic masculinity, whatever it is.
But I would even say that even for women too, because the boxing aspect is also there's to protect yourself too, right? Everything. I don't care. Like it's just I've teaching my kids how to box because we do have a heavy bag downstairs. And when I was doing jiu-jitsu, the club we went to, all Canadian martial arts. I started off doing kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and stuff too. So we learned a lot of the techniques and stuff, how to punch and how not to break your wrist and how to really turn and stuff too. I think it's huge. So I've tried to get my girls to stand. And some days we'll sit there and we'll be bored. I'll put up my hands and just having them the twist and the turn and then getting hopefully sparking something, some interest, and then they might want to do it. So I think boxing is amazing.
Amazing, man. I'm going to tap into that this year. I'm going to do like maybe a couple boxing classes just to get back in the flow. And
do you want to put some headgear on and just duke it out a little bit?
A little bit. I'll be down.
Do you do kicking at all or no?
My flexibility isn't on point.
Boxing's so good. So I got tree trunks for legs from the hockey days, man. So I'm scared if I kick. Yeah.
Alex and I would say the brand's got legs, and DC's got legs now, man.
Appreciate
all right, man. Man, DC, this has been an amazing episode so far. Great insight into the ghosts because a lot of people don't know about that. Like it actually exists, and appreciate you sharing that. And for the listeners, comment on the posts, rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast. This is how we're gonna rank up higher in Apple and Spotify. But we want to thank you for joining us today for another episode of DC Talks. I am DC's co-host Owen Osinde, and we'll be back for episode 6 next week. Talk to you soon.
See you guys.